All right. Am I live? Yeah, so we were having some technical difficulties with Restream, so it sounds like I'm live now on YouTube. I just got to get William over here with me, and we can start real quick. Sorry for the delay with the technical difficulties. But it looks like we're live. Okay. Yeah, so let's see. There we go. There's William. Let's get him in here. Join the party.
Oh, live.
We're live. So that was quite the undertaking. But it looks like we're only on YouTube, which I think is fine. Let's see if I can update channels. Pair of channels. Your channels. Steve Jones Dev on X. Doesn't that sound cool? No.
Maybe.
You said maybe.
Can't say no.
That's funny. So, well, welcome, William. Last time we were talking and we were streaming to nobody. So, welcome to the
Yeah.
Accessibility Checker changelog live stream. We were
One time where I said hi to everyone.
hi to everyone that wasn't there.
Yep.
So I set this to go out to X. Maybe it's working. I'm not sure, but maybe not. Cool. So looks like we're live. All right. Let me post. Post that one. All right. So let's try to. So today we are talking about the CLI, and this episode is kind of generically named, from dashboard to terminal, Accessibility Checker CLI in action, which is fine, right? But when we were discussing this, Chris Hines, our COO, he was like, we were thinking of names. He said, "Pretty fly for a CLI," which I thought was just awesome for being a kid that grew up in the '90s. So if you're not old, you might not get that reference, but this is.
I guess I'm old.
You're old. You don't get the reference.
No, I get it. I'm old.
You're old. Yeah. Okay. Well, I didn't know. It could be an American thing too. Like, right? How big is
Everyone knows Offspring.
the Offspring? Yeah. Cool. Let me get your screen set up, William, and then we will plow through this, and we still want to kind of end at a good time and not take up too much time. So let's jump into it.
Yep.
This is the changelog live stream where you talk about the accessibility checker, which is a WordPress plugin that helps you make your website accessible and stay accessible It's a whole suite of plugins. The Accessibility Checker free plugin, which you can get on WordPress.org. The Accessibility Checker Pro plugin, which you can find at equalizedigital.com/accessibility-checker. And we have a few add-ons. We have an audit history add-on, a multi-site add-on, and an export add-on that are all included at different levels of the Pro plugin. Cool. So today we're talking about the CLI. So William, for those that don't know, can you give us a brief rundown on what the WP-CLI is?
Yeah, so WordPress CLI or WP-CLI is basically a terminal software that allows you to run various commands specifically for WordPress. The way it works is it boots up all of WordPress so that any commands that you're running are running the same way your site would be if you were just visiting the site. So, for an example, so I could just run this WP command here. WP.
Would you like me to pull up a screen? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So I've just pulled up William's screen, and on his screen you can see he's got it split in two. And on one side he's got just a WordPress install in the admin, and on the other side he's got the a command line terminal up. So what did you type in?
Yes. So I just typed in WP generically, and in my local I need to type allow root because I'm running this as a root user. But in a terminal, which is a terminal running on the server that this site in the left-hand side is running. So the site I have in my browser, I have the server terminal open on the right-hand side. And if I just type WP generically and allow root for the fact that I've logged in with a root user when I shouldn't really do that, up pops a whole bunch of information about that WP command as it is. So it contains the description, manage WordPress through the command line, a synopsis, which WP command telling you how to use commands, and then it lists all the various different commands that are available, such as like you can manage widgets, so there's a widget command, roles, so there's a role command, eval, which allows you to just generically run arbitrary PHP code.
So
One.
like installing and uninstalling plugins, that's probably like the most used command, right?
So there is a plugin command. You manage your plugins, and let's just run that. So or test it. So WP plugin list. And it will provide a very long and very out of date list of plugins on this website.
So while that's running, so how does a user get the WP CLI? So if your host, if you have SSH access, most like managed WordPress hosts these days do provide the WP CLI. And if you're running an application like local by Flywheel app, if you're running a site, you can right click on the site and open site shell, and that'll automatically open your terminal window and have the WP CLI running.
Yeah. So if you're running just a website that does not contain WP CLI out of the box from the host, you can go ahead and install it yourself. It is just an executable PHP file. So, I'll pull up in a minute. I'll pull up the website and we'll look at the genetic instructions. It is really straightforward to just install this anywhere. So what I did here was I ran WP plugin list, and it produces this table of all the plugins that are on this website, which on this website is probably around 50 various plugins. Also provides a status. So we have a name, Accessibility Checker, a status of active, and an update of none. There is no update available from .org right now. I'm running the latest version, which is 1.33.0. and it tells you that right in the chart. If there was an update available, it would tell me that version, and it says whether auto updates are enabled. And on this test site, it isn't.
So if there was an update available, you could initiate the update right from the command line.
Correct. So if we get the help for WP plugin, there's help. So it lists all the various subcommands. So you can activate a plugin, you can manage the auto updates, you can deactivate, delete. You can get details, which will basically just pull up what appears as the file header, the information that you see in the plugin description in the dashboard if you're looking at the plugins page in the back end. You can also install, check whether it's active. You can check whether plugins are actually installed, so you can build automations with WP-CLI. If a specific plugin is installed, do one thing. If it's not, do another. And you can list them like I just done, find the path. You can search the WordPress.org repository and get the status of any one or all the plugins on your site. You toggle them, which will either activate or deactivate depending on what the initial state is. Uninstall, update, and you can verify the checksums on some systems will automatically verify the checksums when you download the plugin, but if not, you can verify the checksum of the plugins files against .org's checksums, which will allow you to verify whether the files have been changed or not. And this is quite useful if someone has a website that maybe has been hacked, where you want to verify that none of the files of a specific plugin have changed. So
Yeah. So I mean, that's a lot of power right at your
yes,
fingertips. And
this is just one of a
yeah,
great many commands.
so like another one that we use a lot is like a search and replace. You can search for like if you migrate a site, you can search for the old URL and you can put in the new URL and run a search and replace, and you can run that in a sandbox mode so you can see what it's going to do. And what that allows you to do this without installing a plugin, and a plugin that's going to run inside of WordPress and maybe have some performance issues. You might have better luck and better speed running this from the server level with the CLI. So William's typing in WP search.
Yeah, so I've done search replace, allow root, and this has pulled up the usage. It shows exactly what the format of a WP search replace command would be. And the basics is WP space search dash replace space, and then the old term that you're looking for space the new term. And that's the simplest way you can use this command, but there is a lot of different flags or options you can pass.
Like
so
dry run.
The table, you can run a dry run.
Yeah.
If you're in a network, a WordPress multi-site, you can tell it that. You can also pick an individual site if you are. You can tell it to skip various tables, skip columns in tables. So it's very powerful.
Yeah.
You can also tell it to do recurse objects, which will handle serialized options, which is incredibly useful when plugins store their data in an encrypted or a serialized array, which is common and generally how you should do it, but this handles that.
So that's all great. That's a lot of power. It does a lot. But what does that mean for Accessibility Checker?
Yep. So for Accessibility Checker, you can create custom commands. And we have a few common things in our plugin that people would generally be doing. They might be wanting to check how many issues a specific post has. They might disagree and want to delete the issues, start fresh. They might want to actually find some information about the entirety of their website, what the situation with that is.
Yeah.
So you can create custom commands for that do whatever you might like on a website. So
we have like a handful of them, and before we run through each one, we're going to go through individual. Why did we decide to create custom CLI commands? I mean, we just showed the power of it, but Was it for our own use? Was it for clients' use? Was it requested?
So initially it was for me. I wanted to be able to delete issues, to check the status of issues without having to open individual posts. I wanted to be able to do these things, which was the origin of me deciding I might create these. However, we did get web posts ask us specifically for these commands so that they could potentially integrate with dashboards they have for their customers to provide some additional, insight from the top level of a website. So, this here is just a generic WordPress website. We have the plugin installed, Accessibility Checker. If I hover over the menu item in the left and I click Accessibility Checker, it is going to load up our page, and it contains various statistics. It might be nice to show these statistics elsewhere. So that will be something I will demo shortly.
Cool.
Um,
So our CLI commands were introduced in version 1.15.0. So it's been quite a while that we've had these for several years. And we've just been iterating and adding a few along the way. And I think it's built some momentum, and there's several others that we will be implementing moving on. But let's run through the list, William, and let's go through each one. So
Yep.
starting with do you want to show how you can list out what our commands
Yes.
are?
So in WP-CLI, you can list out all of the commands. So if you type WP space and then whatever the command is, in our case, it is Accessibility Checker, the name of our plugin, that is considered the namespace. And if we just type those into the CLI, it will provide some synopsis or some generalized help, which effectively lists out all of the commands available under this namespace of ours. And currently we have 4 commands on this site, and it lists like the various the various flags and the order that it is expected in. So we, WP space accessibility checker returns 4 commands that can be outlined. So there is the cleanup orphaned issues command, delete stats, get site stats, and get stats. And the way you would run each of them is you would type WP space accessibility dash checker space, and then you would type in the name of the command.
So I notice you're missing one.
I am missing one here in this thing for the purposes of demoing. I decided not to have it enabled by default.
Okay. Cool. Great. So we had a little internal thing too where typing accessibility dash checker is quite time consuming. And
Yes.
and believe it or not, as many times as I've typed accessibility checker, it never gets easier to spell it right or to get the letters in the right order. So we have a prefix for accessibility checker. It's called EDACT, and internally we use that a lot. It's just EDAC, Equalized Digital Accessibility Checker. So I wanted that, and William wanted it inside of the CLI as well. So William's gone through and actually added that as an optional handle for all of our CLI commands. Correct?
Correct. So if you were to type WP space EDEAC space or press return at that point, those same 4 commands that previously appeared to clean up orphaned issues, delete stats, get site stats, and get stats, they all appear as well. So there is 2 ways that you can invoke these commands. I chose not to only support the shorthand version because people might expect the full plugin name as the command name. Feels like I would expect that.
Yeah.
But it is much easier to type just 4 layers.
EDAC.
The shorthand version.
Cool. Well, let's run through them. Do you want to run through them in the order you have them there, or do you want to do them in the order we have it in the notes?
Let's do it backwards from the order I have on here.
Okay. So that would mean get stats is first.
Is the first one. So in my left panel, I have the WordPress post list open. and I'm just hovering over one of the posts so that I can see the URL in the lower part of the browser, and I can see that the ID of this post is 2080. So I need to remember that because this command requires a post ID to type in. So this post here, I'll click on the name and I'll open it, and we can see the results here. So it is 93% of the tests are passed on this post. There is one error and 4 warnings. And if I come back to the terminal and I type in WP space EDAC space get dash stats, and then that post ID, which was 2080. Oh.
Yeah. So William's local setup, he requires the allow root flag. When I
Yes.
run this from like the local app or from like WP Engine CLI or SSH, the CLI through WP Engine, I don't typically have to put that flag in.
Yeah, using root to run these commands is not recommended for the sake of ease, because this is my local server. I can access the root user. Usually you will not have access to the root user. So I have to type dash dash allow dash root for all of these commands. Most users would not. So I did type WP space edac space get stats space 2080, which is the ID for this test post. And as I said earlier, 93% of tests were passed, shown in the WordPress backend editor. And we can see that reflected in the result that gets returned from the command. So past tests, 93, 1 error, 1 warning, 0 ignored items, 0 contrast errors. The content grade is currently 0 because it actually doesn't have enough content to analyze. So the readability is also NA, and the simplified summary is false. And it's N backslash forward slash A, because that is escaped. And it is escaped on purpose because this could be consumed by machines. And we would like to make sure that we do not break any of the expectations of a machine. So all of this data that appears in the command line is also available in the WordPress backend dashboard for this command. So we can see exactly the same numbers on
Yep.
both sides.
So very cool. Yeah. So that is an awesome way to in the command line to get the stats for a single post. So
Yes. And if you were to want just a single stat, so you can
oh
put
yeah.
dash dash stats equals, and then let's just say we only care about errors. You can run that command. Oh,
It's errors with an S.
wrong. Yes. So stat errors, and it returns just the the stat that you have requested. So if you wanted to filter this, you can. It isn't super important for a short piece of data, but you will see later on we do expose a lot of data on some of these commands.
Cool. So the next one is get site stats. So
Yes,
these are the site level stats that you showed earlier, right?
correct. So if I type in that as a command, WP space edac space get dash site dash stats, and my allow root flag, you can see that
Whoa.
is output a lot of different pieces of data. Some of these appear directly on this stats, the welcome page or the stats page for Accessibility Checker Pro, but some of them don't necessarily appear on this page. So we might get slightly more information from the command line.
Yeah. So can I add some clarity there? So
Yes,
um, these stats that are being output. So the command line is showing a whole slew of site level stats about the accessibility scanning that has been done on the site. These stats are not available in the free plugin via the dashboard, but they are available in the free plugin via the CLI.
correct. So I do have the Pro plugin installed on this website. right now. So I have access to the stats dashboard, but if we only had the free plugin, these numbers would not be here. So I can see that across this entire test site, 13.95% of the tests are passed, which means most of the tests have failed on this test site, which is expected for such a bad test site. But in the free plugin, you wouldn't be able to get that number here.
Unless you ran a CLI command.
But you can't get that number from the WP-CLI command.
So,
Correct.
yeah, so that's a little nugget on how to get a little bit more out of the free plugin. Cool. So we don't need to run through what each of these stats are, but I mean, this is, I don't know, how many is this, William? Like 30
It's
stats?
about 30-ish stats. However, if I run the help command, which you can do on the WP-CLI by typing --help after the command, it will.
Your allow root flag, yeah.
Well, maybe I should have restarted this server as well because it was particularly slow. Maybe I can't touch the help on this server.
Yeah, timeout. That's cool. Well, in the means of time, I mean, can you show us how to pull one of those stats with a flag?
Yes, so I'm gonna just copy this rows count one, for example. So we have 43 individual rows currently on this test site. There may be more or less than that in the actual plugin. So if we have the exact same command, so WP space edac space get site stats, and you can do --stats equals and paste the name of a stat, which I'm just doing row count. Oh, so for this one, it is --stat, and it will input just the individual row. So I see 43 rows and success message, but none of the other stats right now. After
So
typing --stat equals row underscore count.
yeah, so in this case, pulling out one stat actually is beneficial because it's a huge array of stats. And if you were using CLI to like, you know, grab this information and combine it with something else, you could just get what you wanted and not have to pull that big huge array every time. So cool. So that's the site stats. Anything else on that? I think that's it.
That's it. Yep.
So in relation to that, right, we have delete stats.
Correct. And if we take that exact same test post that I had open a minute ago, it's just called test, and looking at a WordPress post list in the back end. And because I have the Pro plugin installed, I have visual indicators on every individual post showing how many issues each one has. So this test post has 1 error, 0 contrast errors, and 4 warnings, as we saw previously in the back end, and also from the stats. And its post ID, it is still 2080. So if I were to run WP space edac space delete stats and press return.
Oh, you got to put the ID in, right?
Yes, so it does actually error and says no post ID provided. And let me just pick a random number like 111 as a post ID. It also says post ID 111 does not exist. And that's true on this test site. All of my post IDs are in the 4 digits at this point. So the correct ID for the specific post that I just had open was 2080. And I have a success message now after running that says stats of 2080 deleted. And if I were to refresh the page in the actual back end of the website, I can now see that the test post has gray icons for each of the accessibility errors, contrast, warnings, and ignored items, because it actually has no more data anymore.
Right.
I've deleted those stats. But if I were to open the edit panel for this page again, it will instantly rerun the scan, and It's found different issues now because I have some ignored names, but it's still one error and 4 warnings total, but 3 of them are now ignored because I had an ignored previously set up.
Cool.
And that's 95% now passed with ignoring names.
Right, and I think part of that delete command that, at least from some of our dev stuff and some unique edge cases where we were running into orphaned issues, like orphaned accessibility checker issues in the database when a post was like maybe migrated from one post type to another. And we've actually surfaced that command. You can actually clear issues from the edit screen and from the front end highlighter. You can do that now instead of, whereas before you had to do it through the CLI. But that does lead us to we do have a command related to our cleanup process that we have now, right?
Correct. So we have a cleanup process that runs once a day, and it will delete up to, I think, 20 posts in the back end if they have become orphaned. That does happen if someone changes the post type of a post, or maybe the plugin had been deactivated for some time, posts had been deleted, and then it was reactivated. Orphan posts can appear, and it will run once a day and try and clean them out. That may
It runs once a day via the
WordPress
WP
cron.
cron.
So that's how it works in the actual website. However, if that isn't quick enough for you and you have access to WP-CLI, you actually can run that command from the WP-CLI, and you can provide a batch size of whatever size you like. And you can also give it a sleep time, which is referenced in seconds, which prevents your server from being overloaded if you're going to delete an awful lot of orphan data. So the command is WP space edac space cleanup dash orphaned dash issues. And if you just press return on that command, no orphaned issues found on this test site because I've run this many times.
Yeah, so if you were working on like redoing a website that already had a bunch of accessibility scans, and you were actually like say moving post from one post type to another, say you have like a press releases custom post type, and you want to actually just move those back over into posts, you can run whatever plugin you're using to migrate them, the custom post type, and then you could run this command, and it'll actually find those orphaned accessibility checker issues and delete them from the database. And what it does is it's a cleanliness thing, and it's just the plugin having good hygiene. But there definitely are those cases where you can do it before the command, the cron job runs, so you can have them all cleaned up right away, and then run a rescan, and you have all accurate accessibility stats.
Yeah, and I mean, if you were using, so if you're using a plugin to move post types, then this command might actually be very useful for you. But if you're manually moving those post types yourself, you might also manually move the issues. However, none of the existing tools that move posts between post types are going to understand that our tables are there and have to do that. So this command exists because that is the case, right? None of the tools that exist for moving things between post types or doing anything weird to posts that might cause a desync are going to understand to clean up these tables. So we now clean up these tables ourselves. And as a convenience, we also provide the CLI command. So if you move 10,000 posts, you can clean those 10,000 post metadata up instantly. And cleaning up this data does actually make the SQL queries faster. And if you clean up a lot of data, it's going to make the queries a lot faster.
Yeah. Cool. So like we said, the plugin has its own hygiene process. It goes through every day and cleans its stuff up. But if you find a need that you want to work fast, you can actually use the CLI to expedite those cleanup processes. So that leads us to the last one, William. Do we want to talk about it?
Sure. Do you want to talk about it while I try and install it on this test site?
So so the last one, one we've recently added was we have a license command. So when you buy the Pro plugin, you get a license key, and you can take that license key and you can go to the settings panel, add the license key, and activate it. So your typical premium plugin license key process, right? But we've had some requests recently from some partnerships that we're working through with some hosting companies that they want to be able to service the getting the license key and executing the license key on their server for their customers. So we added a CLI command to that will actually let you activate and deactivate the license key. Well, I think you can do an activation check as well, right, William?
You can check the status of a key.
Yeah.
So yeah, we could probably show that one first. So WP space EDAC space license and dash action is required equals, and then you can give it an action. There's three options. It is either activate, deactivate, or status.
Okay. So do you, if you want to put an actual key in there, I can switch the screens so that we don't broadcast our.
Yeah, I can drag it off to another screen while I do that. So, but
Okay.
as you can see right now, currently the status of the license on this website is currently valid, and pulling it partly over the screen, I'm showing in the back end of this website, we can actually see the active is flagged on the license page. So I'm going to copy that license. I'm going to type WP space EDAC space license space dash action equals, if I could spell it, action equals deactivate. And I'm going to pull this off the screen just for a second to make sure that it doesn't list the key. I don't think that deactivate does list the key. It doesn't. So I'll pull this back over. So we have a success message, and it says license deactivated successfully. So
you can show that on the page if you just drag it over slightly.
Yes. So I have this key here. If I'm going to reload the page, and it now says to enter your license key in the license page on the back end because there is no license key. It has been deactivated, which means it's been cleared from the back end. So if I go to type in WP space EDAC space license space dash action equals activate space dash key equals, and I'm going to drag this off the screen again for a second and paste in a key and press return. And I get a message that says license activated successfully. So let me see if I can resize this screen so that I can drag that over and show you. Yep, so I've run the command and I get a success, license activated successfully. And if I pull this partially across the screen again and reload the page, now we can see active on the license tab. I'm going to just delete that and pull this right onto the screen so you can see. So it now says active where previously it said please enter your license key. And I've deleted this for now. If I click this deactivate button, it does exactly the same thing as running the deactivate command would do.
Cool.
So, clear that so I can pull it back up.
Yeah. So those are a lot of our WP CLI actions. We have a lot more that we're looking at adding, specifically even some relating to be able to actually pull a list of all the issues on a page, and many other things, as well as a full issues API that we've been working on for some time, bringing that over. Do you have anything else to add before we close this up?
No, well, I guess one other thing. So we do have documentation on our GitHub repo of all of the commands with examples of running them and output from each of the commands. And I will be updating this today with the license command.
Right.
There.
And we do have this on the accessibility, or the equalizedigital.com accessibility checker documentation as well. And you can find it in both places, either on the accessibility checker free plugin repo or on equalizedigital.com. So, I mean, this is great. I mean, this kind of opens the door, bringing the CLI and bringing accessibility checker via the CLI into being able to integrate it into lots of different things, into even your CI pipeline, things like that, and any kind of automation that programmers can dream up. You can utilize this to integrate accessibility checker with your applications.
Correct. I think the first thing I'm looking forward to seeing is getting it into people's dashboards, like, from various site management systems, like GoDaddy has one, there's WP, there's a whole bunch of WordPress management softwares that can effectively now pull this data right into that dashboard.
Cool. All right. Well, thanks, William. Thanks for sharing that. That was kind of a quick rundown on the CLI. We're kind of capped for time here, but please check out Accessibility Checker. Please go to WordPress.org. Give us a 5-star review if you like the plugin and use it, and download the free plugin. Give us your feedback, and we look forward to joining you here in 2 weeks for the next Accessibility Checker changelog. Take care. Thanks, William.
See you.